Claire Obscure Expedition 33 became a mega hit overnight, there are millions of people who fell in love with this title instantly, and while it did get the most nominations in the Game Awards history, we are talking about a title that I think is going to get snubbed for Gotti because it doesn't have the highest critic scores out of all of the nominees, but a lot of gamers are crossing their fingers hoping that this title doesn't go ignored. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, this is a game that I absolutely love now. I know so many of you fell in love with it, and it is always nice when your favorite game gets a lot of recognition and attention. None of us really trust these award shows anymore. They are completely rigged, but at the same time, you do still want to root for your favorite title. Now, if you don't know how rigged this is, we know that there is a board that is made up of industry journalists, industry shills. I mean, even these companies are invested in this event. And how are the winners selected? They are determined by a blended vote between the voting jury, 90%, and public fan voting only counts for 10%, which is the major issue. This has been how it's worked forever. The jury, which is made up of industry journalists and really activists, count for 90%, which, if you actually start taking a look at the nominees' user scores versus the critic scores, yeah, we are talking about a very tight race here, and I have a feeling it's not going to be Expedition 33 winning. Now, they did release the full list of nominees today. For the Game of the Year, it is Hades 2, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Hollow Knight Silksong, Claire Obscure Expedition 33, Kingdom Come Deliverance, and Death Stranding 2 on the Beach. Now, I know a lot of people are expecting Death Stranding 2 to win. I personally think that Expedition 33 completely wins. I think that it deserves every win that it's been nominated for. But I do love Silksong as well. I would be perfectly happy seeing Silksong win a few awards. Though, at the same time, we are talking about complete industry snubs here. I mean, we are not talking about Pokemon. We are not talking about something like Ghost of Yotei. We are not talking about Assassin's Creed Shadows. All of these games that apparently were so big and got so much attention. It looks like those games only are in the smaller categories. I would say the largest out of them was Ghost of Yotei getting Best Art Direction nomination, though we're talking about something like Yotei getting Best Narrative nominee, Best Score in Music, Yotei, which that's definitely not going to get a win there, and Ghost of Yotei in Best Action and Adventure Game. And funny enough, the only major nomination that Assassin's Creed Shadows got, which I think was so freaking hilarious to me, is innovation in accessibility. It's Atomfall, Doom the Dark Ages, EA Sports, South of Midnight, and Assassin's Creed Shadows. But besides this, Shadows didn't get any noms for music or writing or gameplay. Nothing like that, meaning it is already left in the dirt and completely forgotten. Now, again, I do think it is important to point out that none of us should take this award show seriously. It is basically paid wins because we're talking about the largest companies in the video game industry actually paying for this event to happen. They're sponsoring it, and the journalists are the ones that are voting primarily, and that is why I am extremely worried. Now, I think that because Claire Obscure Expedition 33 is such an amazing game, it does deserve all of these nominations. It is the most nominated game in the Game Awards history with 12 total noms, though I don't think it's actually going to take Game of the Year. Let's head on over to Metacritic. And let's look at some of these scores now. Claire Obscure Expedition 33 has easily the highest user score, sitting at a 9.6, nearly perfect. But the critic score is a 92, which is still pretty good, but not as good as some of these other titles like Hades. But Hollow Knight Silksong sitting at an 8.9 user, 91 critic, which, by the way, I would be perfectly fine with Silksong taking Game of the Year as long as Expedition 33 wins most of the other awards. Silksong was absolutely phenomenal. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, 8.7 user, 88 critic. We have Donkey Kong Bonanza sitting at a 9 user and a 91 critic, which, by the way, I think is way too high for this game. It was fun, but not that fun. Death Stranding 2, 8.8 and an 89. I actually thought the critic score was going to be higher because I thought that Death Stranding 2 was going to win. This wouldn't surprise me though, but Hades 2 is sitting at an 8.7 user, but a 95 critic, meaning Hades 2 currently has a higher critic score than Claire Obscure Expedition 33, which is wild to me. But I think a big reason why Hades 2 is going to win is because, yes, it does feature what, of course, these critics care about the most, and that is LGBTQ representation. We have tons of articles that have actually been written on this now. I was a little bit mind blown to see just how thirsty some of these video game journalists are, because they always complain, oh, you're just gooners, you only want to see hot women and characters in video games. But when you actually take to a search and you look up the articles that they've been writing, we have LGBTQIA plus representation in Hades. This is the representation we want, as a post over on Reddit. Outright said Hades and queer representation. The Gamer said that Hades is very gay, and the fandom has cultivated a predominantly queer subsection with a love of certain characters, and Hades 2 needed to be gayer than ever, but they did a follow-up article talking about how gay it is. Gaming Magazine talks about Hades being gay. We have Hades characters, LGBTQ characters wiki over on fandom. Sexuality and vocality in Supergiant's Hades sequel. So we're talking about quite a lot of coverage that this game has gotten due to representation, and we know that that is really all these critics care about, is pushing sexuality, and they really only care about representation. So I have a sneaking suspicion if Claire Obscure doesn't win, it is going to be Hades 2, because again, the journalists' vote count for 90%. We are in the minority. We're only 10%, which is crazy given they need this show to bring in gaming viewers. And if they push away gamers, nobody's going to watch it anymore. But taking a look at some of the threads on social media, there are a lot of people saying they are very happy to see Claire Obscure and Silksong on this list. And listen, if you think another game should win, that's perfectly fine. It is your opinion. But at the same time, I think that a lot of people have certain expectations for an event like this. Shroud, look, Arc Raiders, where? Hey, I thought that Arc Raiders was actually snubbed in the sound design category, or best audio, excuse me, because Battlefield 6, Expedition 33, Death Stranding 2, Yotei, and Silent Hill F are here. I think Yotei should have been kicked out. I think Silent Hill F should have been kicked out, and I definitely think Arc Raiders should have been on this list. Though, going back to the thread, when someone asks what I rate Expedition 33, 10 out of 10. If she doesn't win, I will be sad. That's only because they haven't added Hello Kitty Island Adventure into their consideration. Death Stranding 2 for Gotti, yes, we can. It still wouldn't surprise me if somehow Death Stranding 2 pulled out the win, because Kojima is so big, and I just don't think that people would be very happy with that in general. Silksong nominated before release. Is this real life, or are we in the simulation event? Expedition 33, sweet. They tried to sneak this in there. Bonanza's fun. I like Bonanza, but not as much as some of these other titles. Strong lineup this year. Every one of these games had its own cult behind it, but seeing titles like Silksong and Hades 2 finally in the mix makes it feel real now. No matter who wins, this is one of those years where the competition is actually stacked, not just filler. Hades 2 wins by default. Norman's Death Stranding 2 just strands us in existential traffic jams. A wild lineup this year. And yeah, it definitely is, though. I think that people have certain expectations, but I think we've all agreed that if Donkey Kong Bonanza wins, every single one of us is going to completely riot, because that shouldn't have even been on this list at all whatsoever. So I will definitely be covering this more in the future. I will be streaming the Game Awards in a couple of weeks on December 11th. I'm looking forward to see just how upset gamers become over this if their favorite titles do not win. But all I know is I am extremely happy that absolute slop and BS like Assassin's Creed Shadows wasn't really nominated for anything. I don't believe Ghost of Yotei is going to win in the few categories it was nominated, and there were a lot of games left off of these lists that I think is hilarious. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this important and informative, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.